We should be back and good now, right? Yeah. So essentially, we don't need the second update bind groups because we don't have any input or outputs that we're using here. We're only using data from the actual render resource context. Um, so we should be good there. Uh, so let's not cause a crash again like that. But the question is, which bind group is differing, and how do we solve that? Think. Active camera bindings. So I'm not familiar with how that works. Oh, it could be that because we don't have a bind. We don't actually have a camera, a 3D camera. So we have to spawn a 3D camera. Not the orthographic one. Perspective camera bundle. View 3D. Was that default to? That should be fine. What's the FOV though? Oh wait, that's the orthographic. Hold on. Perspective. Okay, there we go. And then perspective projections default for 1000. Oh, that's orthographic again. Goodness. Scrolled too far. Pi divided by 4. Eh, sounds okay. We'll go with it. Um, go. Rust makes memory management. I'm hesitant to say easy because it's not easy, but it makes it enjoyable. About that. That's the right word. Like satisfying. Like when you write some code and Rust is like, hey, you're an idiot when you're trying to use memory like that. And you're like, what? And then when you like realize what you did and when you fully like sort of understand it, I don't know, something just clicks and it like makes sense. And then memory starts making sense. And then like writing better C code makes sense. Like there's like this whole thing with like Rust. I don't want to sound like this crazy advocate, but there's a level of like how to describe it. Just like knowledge you get. Like you can write bad C++ code and like really bad memory or even C code as well and not fully understand why you're doing what you're doing or like why something is wrong. Um, I don't know. Rust was my gateway into learning more about how like memory works, and that just has me excited. So this is a bit of a bummer because we should have a bind group for this pipeline and we don't. In fact, we don't have any bind groups at all. So I'm just doing something wrong. Hmm. But what? What are we doing wrong? Um, let's see if we actually have any bind groups here, or like active cameras, bind groups, etc. Hopefully active camera has debug, please. Yeah, S33N underscore K. That's exactly like why I love Rust, right? Like just by starting in Rust and like using Rust, I've become a better programmer across C and C++ and really any manual memory like languages, programming languages where you don't have a garbage collector, you don't have sort of automated memory, right? Like something clicks in you and you start understanding how the computer uses memory, how to program memory that makes sense and stuff. It's nice. But we do have a bind group. What the heck? Well, okay, well we have an active camera and it does have bind groups. So index 0, that looks right. And we're setting it here. So I guess we need to like break on here to see actually. Man, see like this stuff looks right. So like I feel like we're perhaps this is empty here. Hopefully we can debug that too. Perhaps it's not finding with the layout, like we don't have a match. But let's see here. I mean, according to this, we should. Though it's a little hard to see because I can't see the set ID. I can only see the binding ID. Uh, it should be 00, which looks like what it is. So I think it's setting up the pipeline right and the bind groups right. I think it's just not possibly setting the bind groups. Also, thank you for this discussion. I think this is the longest anyone's chatted on my stream, and the most number of people. So, and I hit those Twitch goals. Uh, man, I swear my Fitbit is just like freaking out. I can't get it to turn on. Can't get it to do anything. There we go. Settings. Reset it. Let me do that. Reboot device. There we go. Yes. Okay. So we have one bind group like we expect. So that's a bit of a bummer. When, maybe I'm not seeing it on the GPU for a different reason. Like, oh, maybe because it's not actually being used inside of here. Like, what if we did map for my mate equals my matrix equals that. There we go. Now it's gonna actually attempt to use that, so perhaps RenderDoc will show it. Oh, it's a little weird. I don't see it in the list here. It's like we're not actually creating the bind group. Although maybe it's one of these. I always forget that Vulkan calls them descriptor sets, I think. Something like that. Also, wow, Bevy's getting really slow to compile for some reason. I'm not sure why changing this file, that one of the examples, would cause such a longer compile time. I don't have the dynamic linking turned on or whatever it is though, so perhaps it's not too surprising. All right, let's take a look now. Yeah, it's weird, like this color pass is just completely broken. I think because the wrong camera is being used. Okay, that looks better. I don't know why these copy buffers are down here. Perhaps that's just unrelated to my compute pass though. Still, oh, hey, there we go, uniform buffer. We should be able to see the data in it too. Let's see, go, yeah. That doesn't look right. But it's probably right, maybe. Yeah. No, that's a bummer. I don't think you can get it to work on Mac OS either. You're kind of tied into using Xcode's linker. It's not as slow as the Microsoft one, but okay, so something's going on here. Like, how are we gonna do this? We need to spawn. We need the active camera for the compute pass to be something different from the active camera of our world. am I gonna do that? Like this should be the active camera here, um, for the actual render main pass, but this should be the active camera for the compute pass. Maybe instead of passing in a, thanks for the follow. I was gonna say maybe instead of passing in like what if we did add camera and then we were like camera entity, right? And then the downside of that is once you set the node, you don't have any access to it, so you couldn't change which camera it uses. I don't know if I like that. And it also requires you to set the camera ahead of time. Um, well, I'm open to suggestions here if you guys have any. We could implement our own thing here. Like compute camera tag. But again though, we kind of need the active camera in order for us to get the can we have 2 active cameras? Does anyone know that? Right, I should be able to have a 2D camera and a 3D camera. That's a good point about the UI pass. I should look at that. Where's that at though? Thought it was there, but I guess not. Um, but I guess it's, oh, I guess it's in Bevy UI, right? That would make sense. Camera node, camera UI. I mean, I want it to be the same one that the render is using, kind of. Perhaps I should move the sprite into the 3D world or something though. Like a 3D sprite instead of this 2D one. I think I could do that pretty easily. I just need to move the transform away from where it's at, right? And then which way is into the camera? Positive or negative? I think it's positive. Is that gonna work though? It should. Maybe it's negative. Um, well, in this particular example, I want to have what? That's weird, a white screen. I want to have ray tracing, right? So you need camera information for that. Well, at least it'd be nice to have non-static camera data. What? Why is it white? What's in sprite bundle? Forget, is there a sprite 3D example? Texture 1.5. Mm-mm. Let me go back to render doc. It's really weird that it's like white. Uh, no, it kind of makes sense now because it's really gigantic. Should only be 1 by 1 though. I'm not sure why it's so huge. Oh, it could be that doesn't the sprite like do some like crazy stuff, right? In the shader or something? Sprite render. Yeah, it times it by the size. So that's why. So we just need to transform it by the size of the sprite. Like scale it by the size of the sprite. Basically, I'm trying just to like output what the result of the render to the screen. And I'm just testing real quick right now with what's the spread thing? I always forget what it's called. Where you spread all like XYZ splat. That's what it is. So what, like, how big is the texture? This will have to change, but we can at least look to see what it is right now. Oh, it's branding, I guess. Icon 256. So I think I want 1.0 divided by 256.0. 1.0 divided by 256. I think that's right. Hey, look at that. Nice. Cool. So I did it. Okay. So let's go back to render doc now that that's fixed. And let's double check our binding for the camera and compare it with what we have for the rendering. So like we can look at the pipeline state here. Okay, so we do have some data there, 1.358 in the X at the very least. And for this one, same thing. Okay, so we have camera data in our compute shader. Cool. All right, next we need to do something really simple. Oh man, I'm trying to remember how to do all this compute stuff too. It's been a while. did the sky like that, but I thought I had a compute shader for comp. It's just the lighting. I think it was in a different branch. All branches. Metrics, lighting fixes, cluster chain, async file loading. Oh, I might have only had that locally. There's probably no hope of getting that back. Lesson learned, right? Like, get your code pushed up. All right, but we have to create a texture. Oh, wrong code. We have to create a texture, so we need textures assets loading in. Get rid of that. How do I tell this compute pass node what resources to use too? I need to figure that out. Oh cool, there's a new fill. But that does not let me specify. I guess it's in the sampler stuff? No. Yeah, so we have to set this. I don't think it's currently possible to do this. It doesn't seem like it is. We have to set it as storage, as like the usage. I'm guessing that's hard coded in the WGP renderer right now. No? Move texture. Wait, oh, there's no usage here, right? Oh, right. That's gonna be in the actual render resource. Shoot. Okay, well, let's just set it here. Extent 3. Let's do something really small first. Let's do 256 by 256. Okay, and then we'd have an array of, let's see, so we'll make it just black. Is that in RGBA though, or RGB? Oh, it's not even, it's in U8? Ugh, that's gross. We'll just do new, since that's the case. I don't feel like filling it. I don't even want to give it alpha, so we won't. It still wants data. That's weird. I should be able to just create an empty texture. I mean, that's what I'm gonna do, but the requirement of needing bytes is strange. Go with RGB. There isn't a format like that available. What format to use? It uses 10A2. Oh, that has A2. Could just do R something. R16. Okay, so new size texture dimensions T2. Then we need a vec of 0. And then format. Alright. Extent 3D. I get this backwards. I thought it was it's like that. Okay. And then just pass the texture. We need the texture handle. That's texture handle equal textures dot add. Okay. Now we should have sort of a custom texture. Yeah. Okay, cool. And that is actually black with a white alpha. But how do we pass a render resource into, how's the full screen node do it? I guess you call update bind groups? Oh no, because that's not. The internal render resource bindings are not available to use. Prepare sets them up from render resource bindings. So I think we have to edit that directly. Thanks for watching, Dragon. See you later. All right. And what kind of API do we have on this? Set a name and a render resource binding. Okay, so then how do we get a render resource binding? This is all stuff in Bevy I don't know much about, so I'm learning as I go. But I think what we want to do is, let's say for example, copy this. We'll start small at first. Compute and resource. I hate how it doesn't like know what to import for some of this stuff. Oh, I can't format this. I do it by hand. All right, there we go. Wait. Oh, slightly messed up there. There we go. Okay, so we need to grab the render resource. Guess we'll throw this into the same. Let's render resources. We'll throw it into the same thing here. And then we have to get Bevy reflect. Here, okay. So then we have this compute resource. How do we get the binding for it if we create one? Get render resource. What's that do? What does this require? Render resource binding. I guess we gotta go find where render resource bindings dot set is called. Ah, see, this stuff's gotta get handled automatically. How does it know what? I guess because of the entities. I'm not seeing how it relates to the entities here though. Right, uniform buffers. Is this where it does it? Here. Asset render resource node system. It takes render pipeline. No. Wait, don't you have to add them? There's a whole thing for adding them, isn't there? Look at the example for the custom material again. Yeah. I think we need to do this, and I think we need it to be compute resource. And it needs to get applied before compute node. Okay, but this asset render resource works on entities, right? No, it doesn't. It works on handles. Yeah, handle T, where T is the render resource. Oh, I thought they were components. Aren't they? Shouldn't this just be with T and query T? Update change entity asset mapping. Move asset with type ID of T. Oh, I think it adds. Let's go back to the example here for custom material. Right. Okay, this is coming back now. Okay, so we should be good then now that we did this. We just need to add it to as a as an asset. Um, compute resources. But I think that's gonna fail because this. Yeah, we have to add the asset. Alright, it's coming back to me now. Stuff that I should know. We don't need the render resource bindings. Okay, so now if we look at it in here, we should see our new binding. Oops. Okay, but the binding's not attached to an entity. But that's fine, because we can write something to attach it to. Like, essentially we can get this attached. We can get this attached to the actual compute path somehow. I need to think about how to do that though. Let's see here. Because normally for a main pass, let's go look at the main pass real quick. Pair does some crazy stuff here. The bind groups. Set bind group. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a pipeline. Set bind group. Somewhere else it actually sets the other bind groups, and I don't remember where, but we have to look for render command set bind group. References. Set bind groups from bindings internal. Set bind groups from bindings. Render resource bindings. Draw. Right, and draw is the context. We just need to do this once though, when we have the compute pass node, before we pass it to the graph. So that means that in ray trace, we need to create the compute resource pretty much at the top. Create compute. That's not This is in the weird spot too now. Move it out of there. Throw it up here. Okay. Create texture. Yeah, so essentially we have to get the asset render resource bindings. And all references to that. What uses it? Enter pipeline, stop bindings. Okay. Dynamic bindings generation. So these are bindings per pipeline? No. These are just bindings in general. So we have to call this and then call what? I think we want to call that. Asset render resource bindings should already be doing this kind of. Texture, texture, texture. Man, I really wish this stuff wasn't so complicated. What does the text do? What is it for? Still need that draw thing, which we don't really have. How does it know that there's a matching pipeline to with this? So back to compute node. Is that all prepared by this? But like we need to do like a render context. No, it's not the right context. What context is this? The draw context. All right. So I think we need a compute context. Kind of. We don't need all this. We just need like, because we already have this, a lot of this stuff. We need this. Asset render resource bindings. Like we have to pass that into our compute node, I think. And what is that used for? How do we get the bindings from that? Set asset bind groups. Okay. Yes. So this is what we have to do in the compute node. We don't really have a draw because we don't need it. Yeah, so it's something like this. I don't think draw is like what we want to use there, but I mean, this is missing asset render resources is like a given asset does not have any render resources. That's exactly what we want to say. Um, so I don't know. Okay, and so you're gonna have to pass in the asset render resource bindings. It's a bit gross. Wait, where are they? Right here. Does it need to be mutable? Yes. For reasons that escape me. This is probably short enough to be in one line. If it's not, then just analyzer or cargo format will fix it. Okay, so we get that. Then essentially we want to do this. We have the pipeline, right? Or the pipeline handle. I think I need more than the pipeline handle. Okay. Okay. Why is it not like this? Can only be returned on a method that returns result or option or another type that implements try. I don't know why it's complaining about that, but whatever. It'll error right anyways, so I think unwrapping is fine. I don't like labels. It's like a go-to. It's like so weird. I get why it's kind of doing it though. Wait, do I? Yeah. Basically need this code down to here. Um, we need render resource bindings, which we have, right? Yeah. Oh, this sets the bind group? We don't have to set the bind group here. I mean, I guess we kind of do. We just gotta do it this way though, right? Like the, wait, what? What did I copy wrong? This is what I want. Wait, why isn't it self dot render resource bindings? Render resource context. Oh, that's different. Um, oh, what is that gonna look like? Oh, this. Why is this airing? Iterator mute not found in the current scope. Can we import it? No. Resource context, render resource bindings. I see. Okay, so we can kind of trick this by doing something like resource bindings equals resource bindings. There we go. All right. It's supposed to be result. That's weird. Oh, because it's an option. We don't need to do this part, technically. We just gotta call this. I think this does a. Bindings. Oh. Oh, that's my mistake. This needs to be like this. Oh, like that. Okay, one last error. Cannot borrow it as mutable more than once. Ooh, it's a tricky one. Why is it doing it again though? Surrender resource bindings dot iterate asset. How come this one isn't getting that error? Because ah ah. Hmm. Isn't it borrowed up here though? Oh, you pass none to it. So yeah, so that code wouldn't run because yeah, so this stuff wouldn't run because in the original code, if that's none, then it just continues and it only does this part. So this whole thing here we can remove. Okay, that's a lot simpler. Okay, so we've come in here, grab our pipeline descriptor, our layout, and then our render resource bindings. And then for each bind group in the layout, we find the bindings that match in the render resource bindings. We update the bind group, push our new set bind group command. Okay, does this have to get called every frame though? It kind of seems like it does. When does this get called? Yeah, every frame. So how do we call this every frame without knowing what our asset is, like our asset render resource binding? We store a handle, and then we don't need to get, we just store the handles to it. Yeah, okay. So this goes, this is gonna be like this, and here, I guess, really. Well, no. We'll do it in here. Well, again, no. It does have to go back up here. Right, but this calls it. When do we call it? In prepare? Yeah, in prepare. Inside here, when we have all this stuff that we need to call it. Oh, is this what this kind of does though? It already calls update bind group, so why isn't this working? Because it's not related to an asset, that's why. See, we need these asset render resource bindings, I'm like 90% sure. Okay, what do we sell for? Just the pipeline handle? Okay, good. So if we call update bind groups for assets, render resource assets, we call self dot set asset bind groups. All right, and then let's see here. The asset render resource bindings. Okay, so we can pull those in. How does this do it? Right, okay, so this is where we would actually loop. Bindings for asset resource. Wait, how do I even do this? Generically. Asset handle T. I think we have to do it more like this. Asset render resource bindings, which is this. We could pass the pipeline directly in here. Therefore, by bypassing that part. Find descriptor. Asset handle. Okay. I think we actually want just this part. I think we want like just the part before this, like we don't actually want to loop through. So we kind of do need this. Sort of. Set the bindings like this. But this part here is wrong. We don't want to do this. We want to pass in the bindings to this. Whole thing can drop down. Why is this complaining now? All right. Screw it. We don't need to pass anything there. Pipeline descriptor. Compute pipeline descriptor. Okay. This part we just continue here. Okay, and then down here, render resource bindings, this stays the same. Pipeline descriptor, render resource context, set bind group commands, set bind group commands. Oh, oops, this is the part that I need to change. Let's do it like this though. Okay, render context, asset render resource bindings, compute pipeline descriptor, asset handle. Don't need the asset handle anymore. Render resource bindings. How do we get the render resource bindings here now? We want to pass them in. Guess we could just loop through all of them. Seems kind of slow though. Well, I guess that's what we want to do anyways though. Wait, is it? Asset bindings. Mm, I see. So we don't even have to do this part because we have to render resource bindings here. And where do we get the other render resource bindings? Render pipelines, which really is compute pipelines dot bindings. I gotta figure out how to get that. I don't think we need to do this anymore. Yeah. Alright, I think this is right. But we have a world borrow here for that, so we could change it to world borrow, I think. Okay, so we just need to figure out how to get the pipeline bindings now. Render pipelines equals mute render pipelines, which comes from the query. So it's that render pipelines. I think we want the actual compiled pipeline, right? How do we get that? Don't actually have it. So here. Do this. No, but we can do. How do we get that? That's just the descriptor. Oops. Shoot. Pipeline new. Pipeline. Specialization. I think we have a compute pipeline that we can use here. So uh, does render pipelines not have the, or does compute pipelines not have the bindings? What was it done here? You got to iterate through the pipelines. We already have one. Render pipelines bind. Oh, there's a render resource bindings per pipeline. Um, think we already have that with these bind groups here. Well, kind of. I think this is what we want. Because perhaps we still have to call this to update these bind groups. But maybe not, because we should still have the right layout, right? Oh, that should be fine. We don't need T asset on this anymore. What do we use self for? To push the bind groups. How about we just return a vec of set bind group command. Okay, cross our fingers and hope we have asset binding groups now. Oh, that's annoying. Wonder if we can somehow use this like pull this stuff out, right? It seems like it doesn't need to be here. It doesn't have like an and self for this set bind groups from bindings internal. And then instead of doing draw, it should just well, yeah, it should just return an iterator, like a vec of bind group draws commands or whatever they're called, bind group commands. Okay, we're closer now. Date bind groups. Let's just delete that. Compute pipeline. Use res mute asset Should probably do it all in crate, but that's fine. Okay, so now if we run this in render docs, capture that frame, our pipeline state. Oh, why don't we have the asset binding? That doesn't make any sense. I think I'm gonna need some help here because I don't think I fully understand what's going on. That still set the camera's binding correctly though, but that's a separate bind group command that gets called. I should put some debugs in here, I guess. Like bind group descriptor. Do we get any bind group descriptors from there? We should. From the asset render resource bindings, which should have what we're looking for, I think. Maybe not. Yeah, so it's not finding any of the bindings, because otherwise we would get a bunch of debug logs spitting out at us. So back to this example. We do add a compute resource here. And we add the associated asset render resource node. How does add render, does this get used? Find all references. I guess I wanna maybe look for this one. Or, yeah. See, this is what we're missing. Asset render resources node system. Okay, so this should run and call get set, get or insert me on this. Let's see. Let's see if it does. Okay, so it doesn't know. It can't show me that, but it can at least show me the that we got here. I hate this. I feel like it's just looping through the same songs. with some ambient music. Okay, so we don't get here. Um, shouldn't we though? Because it gets added as a asset. Like, let's go back to here. So we have add asset compute resource. Wait a second. Hold on. Render resources plus asset. Assets T. Debug. Handle. Like there should be one for the texture, right? And for the sprite and stuff. So like it's a little weird that it didn't hit this debug. But it should hit this one. Okay. Compute resource is there. So we should get a, excuse me, we should get a changed asset hash map if it's loaded, which it should be loaded. So which case it's going to come down here and say changed assets. Yeah, prepare uniform buffers. Set up uniform textures, resources. Wait, where does it use asset render resource bindings? Asset waiting for textures. It only does this if it's a texture. What? What about all the other types of assets? It should call that too, right? Maybe I'm just missing. Okay, so uniform buffer. So it should call this. So we should be getting here. Um, asset handle. I think if this doesn't really show me anything, I'm gonna call it quits here. And I'm just gonna undo that change and commit what I have. Yeah, see, like I have the same, like I have asset IDs here. So like it should be creating, like inserting this into here. So the fact that I don't have a binding still is really strange. Like it doesn't get to any of these because the layout doesn't match or something? I don't even know. Alright, let me undo the render resource node. Discard those changes. Um, Start of a compute. Let me push that. I was hoping to do more ray trace stuff today, but apparently that's not gonna happen. At least not on stream. So maybe on Wednesday we'll try the stream again and I'll have more done then. But for right now I'm gonna see if I can reach out to some people in the rendering Bevy community and see if they can help. I feel like I'm close. Oh, you know what? It probably is working and I'm just an idiot. Hold on, hold on. If we, yeah. Binding 0, sure. And then we say, oh, wait, what is the compute resource? Is it 2 underscores? I don't remember. I'll look at the example here. Shader. Just one. And then it's just the name. Oh, but not that one. This one. And then this would be for color, right? Yeah. Okay, so, oops. I think that'll work. Oh man, that if this works, I'm gonna be so bummed that I just spent like a long time trying to figure out how to get this to work right. Uh, we're so close to being able to just be like, change the color of this texture with a compute shader. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for as a first step here, is just to change the color of a texture using a compute shader. It's like a basic first like test example. Please compile faster. Okay, we got an error. Compute pipeline has a layout which is incompatible with the currently set bind group. First differing at entry index 1. Okay. This is good. This is like a step in the right direction. So now we just need to figure out why. I can do that by like spitting out the bind group. Oh, we already do. And this is still not running. Interesting. Because the layout should match that. Groups. What does this do? Unchanged. Turn the existing bind group. No match, none. So technically, it's saying there's no match here. There's no existing bind group in the render resource context for that bind group descriptor. But if there isn't one, where does it create the bind group? So it literally creates it if it doesn't exist here. So how are we not getting one here? Because the bindings in the render resource bindings doesn't contain that bind group descriptor. We need the debug bindings dot. I want to see the bind group descriptors. I'm gonna put pub here real quick just so I can take a look at them. And then I want to compare that to the layout bind groups. Okay. It'd probably be easier just to output like a trace. I couldn't seem to get that to work though. Because I think Bevy logs stuff. Or at least I know WGPU does. Let me just also make sure compute resource underscore color set one binding 0. Oh, I think that should be fine. Okay. All right. So here's our layout. We have a camera view, index 0, 0, and then 1, 0. We have an empty bind group descriptor. We just have descriptor IDs here. How do I get the actual descriptors? Um, all right, I need a break, guys. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but something weird's going on. So it looks right as far as I can tell, but it's kind of hard to see. I'll try one last thing with in the WGPU context for create bind group. If we can look at what bind groups it actually creates, then that might help us. So it just uses a descriptor ID, but we can still at least see what the actual bind group descriptor looks like. The layout, bind group layout, that's what I want to output. All of the layouts, just the one that matches the descriptor ID. So group layout here. If it doesn't create the bind group, then we know we're doing something wrong. See, it does trace here, so that would have been helpful to see. But it only outputs the ID, so it doesn't actually show you like the full layout. Okay, so bind group layout, we have one that says 1 1 and one that says 2 1. Those are definitely related to Bevy sprite, I want to say. Well, there's 2 1, that's the sprite, and 1 1 would be the color texture. We have a 3 1, which again, that's probably, wait, 3 1. I don't know what that goes to. We have a 0 1. We could maybe output the pipeline too, so we can try to figure this out more. I can't output the pipeline. Bind group layout. All right, I give up for today. I will be back Wednesday, I think. So we'll probably not be doing compute stuff on Wednesday unless I got something to show off, and we'll just go back to game dev stuff. So, but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the stream, even though it was probably really boring, and I got super stuck here. But yeah, I think I can get through this. Maybe just need a little help. So, this fine group stuff is really complicated. It's kind of annoying. But yeah, all right. Well, thanks for watching, guys. And like I said, I'll see you. I think Wednesday I'll see you guys again. So have a great evening. See you guys.